when I'm on the phone, the conversation for conversion is an appointment. It does not mean I don't care if they're buying in 6 months. The next conversation is going to happen on this date. I'm going to set you up in the calendar. I'm going to send you a text and email before then.
All right, folks, welcome back. We're here, and I got a great guest for you today. Daryl is a guy that I've seen very active on the forums online, the Follow Up Boss community, Local community, adding value and really, unfiltered comments a lot of times of what agents are not doing right? What's not working. And then he shares a lot of what is working with his team. And when I see someone like that kind of comes from contribution, just kind of wants to help people out. It's rare, number one. And then number two, I get curious and I want to make sure that they're legit, right? So, we had a conversation, I've been looking into Daryl, and he's an amazing producer. So, I invited him on here to the show to talk about this problem that a lot of agents have with the conversion of internet leads, and he's an expert at it. He does it at a very, very high level, among other things, but his team does it at a very high level. So that's why he's here. But Daryl, why don't you give us, the introduction? How'd you get into real estate, and where are you right now? And then we'll jump into this topic of internet leads. Go for it, man.
Well, thanks for having me today. I've been in the industry for about 15 years now. I got into the real estate and the housing crash in 2008. Prior to that, I worked for corporate Chrysler. I did dealership development. I worked in the finance and sales department. I taught dealerships how to increase their revenue in back-end products. Prior to that, I'm a military veteran. So I got into real estate because the market was crashing and lenders were not lending for cars. And at that time, Chrysler was pulling a lot licensing agreements. So,
Wow.
not knowing any better, I said, I'm gonna get into real estate. The only reason why I got into real estate is I saw this one guy on social media bragging about his brokerage and what a handful of agents he was doing. And he had 10. And collectively over 2 years, he grew to like something like 300 or 400 agents. So that's how I got into the industry. Most people said, "Oh, I'm sorry you joined in '08." It was my best year. My first year in the market, I sold 75 homes.
Holy cow.
Yeah, like 75 homes. I was working from 7 in the morning to 1 in the morning. It was insane. It was just
Wow.
I couldn't even I've never in a financial crisis to today, I've never experienced anything as far as how busy it was. And then so I did that. I started as a buyer's agent predominantly. Did Was a buyer's agent for about 4 years. And then I got this idea that I was going to go independent. And I realized I didn't know anything about real estate. I was like, okay, I can be a door opener, but what good is that going to get me? I didn't know how to get listings. Um, then I contacted somebody who's very prominent in the industry. Uh, and I went to work for him for 2 years. And he was like the best coach I ever had. He said, just listen to me, and I promise I'll make you the greatest. And within 90 days, I was
It's a
on
bold,
speed.
bold promise. A pretty bold promise.
Yeah, it was I was doing around $10 million a year in buyers deals already.
Wow.
So when you and I run into this problem still when I talk and coach to people, like I'm like, if you do what I tell you, you'll succeed, but people just do what they want. But I put blind faith in him. And at that point, that was about 8, 9 years ago. My real estate life forever changed. I started focusing on listings,
Mm.
and so I became number one at. So I literally was doing $10 million a year in production when I met him. So I literally had to go to his program and sit in his office for 9 hours a day 5 days a week and
Wow.
died. Like
Wow.
I was not even allowed to do real estate until after hours or on the weekends, but I did
Wow.
it. I followed through. Fast forward 2 years later, started a small team and with four agents was moving 800 homes a year with four agents. Uh, this is where things become a little different and I'm very grateful for everything. So then after that we grew from four agents to 50 agents. We went and took a little hiatus with one of the multi-level marketing revenue share models.
Mhm.
Um, we Not that there was anything wrong, we just didn't see the value in paying $250,000 a year in fees to them. So we
Okay.
stepped back and we went independent. At this time, we were moving anywhere from 1,000 to 1,300 homes a year.
Wow.
Um, and then, so then approximately about 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to have a different direction in life. Up until about 2 years ago, I've sold, at that point, I sold from the time I got in the industry till now about 9,000 homes. And about 2 years ago, I decided that I didn't really want, I wanted a better work-life balance. And it's not that I couldn't have had a team and had a bunch of management. I already had all that. I wanted to go a different direction in life. So at that point, I partnered with another brokerage, and that involved bringing my database in where we're going to be talking today. I took my database to that brokerage.
Cool.
Basically started a partnership and opened my database up to a brokerage that has about 300 agents.
Wow.
And we provide leads to the agents on a referral basis. So that's kind of where we're at today, with the addition of me owning divorcerealestate.com and 1-800-BREAKUP and doing lead generation for real estate agents, therapists, and attorneys. So that's kind of where we're at.
I love
That's
it.
the story down the road. Yeah.
So let's unpack this. There's a lot of really great nuggets in there. You know, because we could go all day just on the prospecting part. I know you're prospecting based. That's probably a topic for another day. I want to drill into that database, right? Because that's I think that's important. Let's talk about that database and how do you approach conversion of that database. And now it looks like you're also relying on other agents, right? It's not just yourself, and it's more than you. So how do you have success through these other folks? I think the guys, there's going to be something around your either training or systems or something right there. I'd love to hear more about that. And I also want to talk about the divorce leads too. That's a really interesting topic. We'll leave that one to the end. But Daryl, what do you mean when you say database, and how do you have other people working your database? How does that work?
Well, first and foremost, I think this is the number one thing is it doesn't matter if you're a team lead, you're building a lead program for a brokerage, or you're an individual agent. You need to know, one is your mindset, right? You need to have the mindset like, one, you're not going to convert everybody, and you're not going to work with everybody. You have to be okay with only working with the people who see value in you. I think that's the first part. If you're trying to work everybody, you're not your authentic self, and you're not going to get any lead conversion. Two, you need to know the difference between leads, right? You actually need to know where your lead is coming from, how they were procured under that, through whatever company you're purchasing leads through. What's the expectation that that company is presenting? And then you need to know where they are in the process. So every type of lead has they're in a different they're in a different step of where they are in the buying process. So for example, if an ad is posted on social media like Meta, and it's got a cool house with a waterfall in the middle of the living room, of course somebody's going to want to see more pictures, so they're going to click in. they're going to have to put their name, well, their name and phone number and the email address automatically populates. And then if that is what you call a lead, which I don't call that a lead, I call that somebody who wanted to see pictures, and you get their information and then you're calling them, they were never a buyer anyway. So knowing what, knowing each type of lead, knowing what the intention is to procure that lead, and knowing the timeline, and that will help you tremendously. So when you're building a database, you need to know that information right up front. Where am I going to buy leads? Where am I going to spend money? And then the other part of a database is I don't care if you're buying leads from the site that has estimates on it. Those leads are not transactional leads necessarily. They're somewhat down the funnel, but at the end of the day, your expectation on when you're going to convert a deal should not be based on what's happening now. It should have been done 60 or 90 days ago. So understanding that there is no fix for your lack of work pre setting up a database or nothing, or pre setting up a database. If you didn't do any work, I don't care where you're buying leads from,
The
you're still
leads
going to be
suck,
struggling.
right?
Yeah,
The leads
they're all going
the
to
leads
suck,
suck.
right? Yeah,
They're
that's going to be
terrible.
your mindset. So you need to know that before setting up a database. Um, the the average lead, these are just some specs. Average lead takes about 365 days to convert. It doesn't matter if it's Google, uh, Zillow, Realtor, whatever. So you need to know that, and you need to know like what is your budget like? How much money, like longevity, do you have with this ad spend? If you only got $5,000 in the bank, you should probably shouldn't be buying leads that are $1,000 a pop, or $400 or $500 a pop. And then the other problem is that did you know only 50% of agents actually call the damn leads? Only
I
50%.
100%. That yeah, and I yeah, 100%. That's why I have a company that the people hire callers, right? Because it's
Right.
AI and all these other tools are popping up because as an industry we do such a bad job at picking up the phone. 30-second story here. I was helping a family member look at properties in Houston. I said I'm gonna do this for fun. Registered on 5 websites, right?
Mhm.
Houston, not a small town. This is a big town, Woodlands area, North Houston, nice area. I registered. Every single one of them except one texted me right away. A
Mhm.
few of them put me on their text messaging campaigns. One called me of the 5. And these are first page of Google, by the way. This is not, some of these people pay for ads, some of them don't. It's SEO. It still costs a lot of money to get on the first page of Google in Houston. Am I right? This is
Right.
not cheap. They're paying a
Yeah.
lot of money for these websites. One of them called me and I was blown away by that. Wow, this is 2024 and people still don't pick up the phone and call those leads on average.
Yeah, I would say that that's 1000% true, right? I've had people who've worked for me when I had a team. I have people that are currently on the team and they would rather just email and text.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, I look at it like this. The agent that picks up the phone while the client is in a phase while they're doing some research and actually provides value, can tell tonality. That agent is going to be less to be cheated on and have a relationship with the consumer. And that go so going back to knowing where the client is in the buying stage in correlation to where the lead came from. So Facebook leads are typically aspirational, top of funnel. Google leads are research leads, Zillow and Realtor.com, and some of the referral sites are transactional leads. So as you work your way down the form, we call it art, they become transactional. So what I see is the agents who call leads, right, where they're buying leads. If the lead's not transactional, they don't want anything to do with it. So
Yeah.
the consumer is getting the same crappy behavior from 90% of the agents in the industry, right? The agent doesn't want to pick up the phone and call them, right? They'll text message them. on a text drip, email drip, let the AI run it, and all these things I love. But the agent is only looking for a transactional lead, and I can guarantee you the percentage is insanely high and in correlation that their real estate production is on a roller coaster ride. Like they're doing good 1 month and they're not doing good the next month because they have no consistent pipeline of business, right? They're looking for their transactional lead, and then everybody else they put in if they didn't have a CRM, they just like whatever left it in their email, or they left it in whatever brand they CRM that where they were buying the leads. And then what happens is 9 times out of 10, some of these systems have some good follow-up processes. The system's doing things, and the agent isn't even paying attention to the alerts because they're so busy looking for a transactional lead that those clients that said they were 90 days out are now transactional, and you ignored them, and you're still spending double, triple the time chasing a new transactional lead when you have a transactional lead in front of you. So
Yeah, I think
understand.
the agents fail to see that the inconsistency in income probably is due to their inconsistency in lead gen, right? I mean,
Right. Well, and follow up, I would say lead gen and follow up because
lead gen and follow, 100%,
yeah,
100%. I
yeah.
agree with you.
So I would say that's the you and then I say that those types of agents are probably the worst in the industry because when they get in front of a consumer, they're not act their bank account isn't sitting pretty. So now they need to get a deal. So they're leading the client based on getting a paycheck more than based on um providing the value that they're there as a problem solver. And personally, for me, it's funny because I walk out of a closing and I don't even think about the paycheck because I don't even see my closing packages. I don't know anything. Like when my office pays me, they pay me. So I don't even think about that. I think about when I walk out, I'm like, okay, that client's got their home or sold their home. I'm going to call them tomorrow to make sure that they felt good about this. And then I'm going to follow up with them. And I'm not really worried about where my next deal is coming from because I've been consistent in prospecting, following up. I already know that I have a pipeline of like 20 or
100%.
30 people. So it
No,
doesn't really matter to me.
the decisions you make are very different if you're desperate for that one. I've been there actually. So, I'm
Mhm.
thinking when I was an active agent, I remember this 1 month, man, this 1 month where I was dry, nothing in there. A lender hands me a lead, and that person was going to close no matter what. And I just remember catching myself saying, hey, would I be doing this if I had another deal in the pipeline? Would I be saying this if
Mhm.
I had another deal in the pipeline? Right? Would you be behaving this way if you weren't desperate for that commission? And it's very easy to fall into that trap. And also the other way around. Would you work with someone that you absolutely are not a good fit with if you had a pipeline? Could you say no to business? Right? Could
Mhm.
you do the right thing? Could you say no to business? All that stuff is off the table if you're desperate for that commission. But let me roll it back a little bit, Daryl. You mentioned something super important: understanding those lead sources, right? Like not,
Mhm.
you're saying there's on average fundamentally a different lead if it comes from like a top of funnel social media lead versus a search engine lead versus the portals, right? There are different phases. I mean, you can get all kinds of leads anywhere, but in general, you kind of see those. For your team, what do you guys embed? You mentioned those three big buckets. Social media tend to be top of funnel. Search engine, Google tend to be a little bit further ahead than that. And then you've got the portals that tend to have the more bottom of funnel leads, and they charge that way. Priced accordingly. Priced accordingly.
Right.
What? How do you guys see those? How do you allocate your budget? Do you spread it across all three? Do you? I think a lot of folks, are interested in that when they see people that produce at your level. They're like, how do you look at those lead sources, and how do you invest accordingly?
Well, we all know that I'm a favorite supporter of a certain brand, right? We all know
100%.
that. And they offer a variety of leads.
Yeah, you
But
can choose social media,
mm,
search. I mean, they have
yeah,
several, maybe not Zillow, they have several options, right?
right. So with me, I'm going to give this disclosure, and I might get some slack for or get some heat for it. There's so many marketing gurus on social media
Oh,
that swear they can get you these type of leads and they convert. I call BS, right? I call BS. I mean, if you filled your database with a million of them, I'm sure you're going to get some conversion. Personally, I think so. I think social media, as far as Meta, personally, I don't think I don't spend any money there.
got it.
As far as trying to find clientele. The reason
Got
why
it.
I don't is people don't go to Meta to find real estate. They just don't. And inadvertently, if they see a cool home, it's like a one in a million shot. Most people work with a professional, so they're getting searches sent to them. So I stay away from social media. My social media is going to be from my friends, my family, business associates out of state who see me being me, the funny me, see me being a coach, seeing me mentoring kids, seeing me at a closing table every here and there, and seeing me go on a rant about politics. They're going to give me a client based on that. They're not going to. I'm not looking for a client to say, "Hey, I'm looking for $1 million house, and I don't know you, but your ad looked cool on social media." Sorry, it doesn't work that way. Nobody. So social media, I stay away from. Um, I, I will say that we are almost at 100% level. Um, Google. There's no way around it. For the
Got it.
cost, our lead conversion is insane. Now with the lead conversion on Google, when we're at 100% ad spend on Google, we have 100% ad spend on retargeting. So the database is very large, right? I think by the end of the week, we'll be at a 500,000 people in our database.
Wow. It's
So
massive.
we have to retarget to them, right? We can generate
Got it.
all the new leads we want, but if we know the average lead takes a year to convert, we can set up seller alerts and buyer searches all we want, but we want them to see our brand, our face. And so when we reach out to them and calling, they're not like, Daryl, who? Who are you? Right? What brokerage are you from? Oh, I'm getting your emails. So we're having a Google. The reason why is if the average cost is somewhere between $7 and $20 on Google versus um, $1,200 a lead, or a 45% referral fee if you're on one of these flex referral programs.
Yeah.
And they're controlling your behavior, how much you call, they're controlling it. We won't really talk too much about them, but that brand, I spent over $4 million with them over 7 years buying leads from them.
Wow. The big Z, the big Z. Yeah.
The big Z, yeah, the big Z. But the crazy point is that I'm fortunate enough to be around a lot of influential people in the real estate industry, coaches, very successful teams. And some of these successful teams that are on these big Z Flex teams, they actually have better conversion on Google pay per click, and they definitely make more money on their P&L and their bottom line.
If you talk to them off the stage in
Yeah,
private, they'll
yeah.
tell you they don't make any money off of it. They
No,
don't.
they don't.
The team leader, they'll be honest with you, like real, being real. They're like,
Mhm.
no, but they want deal flow that feeds the
Well, the
team,
money's
and
coming. Yeah.
I'm like, so I mean, but what's the point, right?
Well, the
Is
money's coming, money's coming from the referrals, hopefully. But the problem is
ah,
those agents again they're more like door openers. So the type of service that the consumer is getting is probably, I'm not saying all, but it's definitely a 50-50 gamble at best if they're
gotcha.
getting good quality service from the agent. So, but some of the agents do good on them and they collect referrals, and you'll see a lot of attrition from those teams from agents leaving and going and doing their own thing based on the referrals that they got from being on the flex program. So Google's been legit. our number one, along with retargeting.
Got it.
And
And
then
retargeting on Google, let's be clear, retargeting on Google through, the AdSense and, where it can put all the ads basically on every website known to man. The retargeting through Google, not retargeting through Meta, because Meta has a pretty robust retargeting tool as
right,
well. You're saying it's better bang for your buck has always been Google-based retargeting. I love it.
right, and Google and ad spend too, right? Like new lead
PPC,
generation.
love
Yeah,
it.
that's been our thing. And again, the mindset most agents that are probably going to watch this are going to say, "Hey, I need a now deal." Well, a now deal is you should have been working 6 months ago, 9 months ago,
100%.
a year ago. Um, that is kind of where where we're doing lead generation. And again, and then in addition to that, not paid. Well, what we're not paying for is, well, you pay for it in some form, like getting neighborhood data. But every listing that we put pending, every buyer we put pending, every listing we sell, every buyer we sell. Um, Fortunately, we have a brokerage, and there's a couple hundred agents here, so we're able to circle prospect via advertising, phone dialing, and with the platforms that we use, we're able to give value as far as home pricing, what's going on in the market. We know that when we call them, they're not ready to move right now, but if they were going to move, where would that perfect home be when they retire? Or if they're going to have kids, the correct conversation, right? The right conversation at the right time, not just a conversation about real estate. Or and a lot of times, less is more. So the right conversation based on neighborhood data, and that's huge for us. I would say probably 30% of our business is not paid leads. I would say
Wow.
from
Prospecting based,
neighborhood data.
prospecting
Yeah,
based.
yeah, based on what we're doing. Because it's so funny. Like you'll see one home go up, and then you'll see two or three. But I just have a listing here that in this summer alone, I've seen 10 homes in this private community go up right after mine. And I got two more listings in there, but I was like, man, I should have hammered that neighborhood harder because seven other homes went live and I didn't get those. So.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And let's drill down a little bit into that because you mentioned Circle Prospect, which people, all people, if you follow, me, people know it's like picking up the phone, just listed, just sold, open house, or just calling around the neighborhood. But you mentioned digital advertising too. So what do you mean by Circle Prospect with advertising? What does that mean?
So our platform that we use that manage our management for our lead program, they allow us to do ads for just sold, just pending, just
Oh,
sold.
Google ads that are like geo specific. Got it.
Geo
Yeah, because
target, yeah,
they
yeah.
do much better. Google does a much better job at that than Meta. Like hands down. Like, it's
Yeah.
not even close. They can do a much more
Well, you're also
targeted.
hitting at an intentional client too, right? Because guess what? The person who has been, well, first of all, somebody who's in a neighborhood who sells. The people in the neighborhood, there's other people in the neighborhood that have been thinking about it. They've been in the research phase, understanding that nobody just woke up today and said, "Hey, I want to sell. Let's sell our home and uproot our family and be living out of boxes and be miserable." So they were aspirational. They started looking. They weren't really serious. A year or two later goes by. They start researching what their home's worth. Home goes on the market in their neighborhood. They showed up at the open house, lied about who they were to the listing agent. Then you know listing agent didn't get their information regardless. Met big mistake.
Yeah,
Then client goes home. That home goes pending. A month later, a new home pops up on the market. So the person was ready to go. They just wanted to confirm while they did all their research, while they were in the research phase. They came out of aspirational. They went in the research phase. Now they're transactional. So when you're looking at somebody in a circle prospecting neighborhood, they kind of need a little kick in the butt to get moving, and the neighborhood drives that. Um, so I'm a big believer in phone calls. I'm a big believer in putting door hangers up when I'm doing open houses and things of that nature. But what we found is that 30% of our deals come from the last transaction. And
interesting.
what I'm going to say is this, is that if I could get up on a Sunday morning and I was going to hold an open house from 12 to 2, and let's say I had church, right? And you know what? I'm not going to miss church. Well, then you know what? I'm going to reschedule the open house for Saturday. So my open house is between 12 and 2. I'm going to make sure that I devote 2 hours before that to door knocking, the immediate neighbors, putting a door hanger up, and I'm going to find some FISBOs and expireds in that neighborhood and let them know about my house and let them know that if they're interested, if there's extra buyers left over, I'm going to bring them to their home. So
Oh,
that,
I love that. Holy cow. Hold
yeah.
on, hold the phone. So you're calling up motivated sellers that don't have an agent, evidently, right? If they're FISBO or they're expired and they haven't relisted, they don't have an agent. You're
Mhm.
calling them up and saying, "Hey, I'm drumming up business for this house. I mean, if I have some extra
Yeah.
buyers, would you be interested?" That's a killer script. I love
Well,
that.
we're calling before we do the open house. We're calling before we do the open house, and we're showing up to some of their homes in the immediate area before we do the open house. So if the open house is at noon, we're going to go door. We're going to first. We're going to put signs everywhere in the neighborhood. It's going to look like election day right away. That's going to be the first thing we're going to do at 10 o'clock.
How many signs
We're
are we
going to
talking about? Like a
50,
dozen?
50.
50?
Yeah.
Holy cow. That's yep, that is election day. I love it.
Then we're going to put a sign in the front yard. Open house starts this time. So all the signs are out. Now I'm gonna go door knock the FISBOs and expires that I already called before the open house. Hey, this is Daryl. We spoke on the phone. By the way, here's a package about the home. You can come check it out. Take a look at it. Maybe get some ideas about how that home is different than your home, how your home relates to this home. And you know what? If we have extra buyers, I'm going to follow up with you. By the way, when you sell this home, what was your plans where to go to next? Right? You know what? I just want you to come visit me and check me out. I don't want to get a bunch of your information. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Come check me out at my open house. Then I go, then if they'll give me their information, I'll take it by all means. I give them my package. Then I go and door knock 40 doors immediately around that house, and I put a door hanger up, and then I go and do my open house. And then when I'm done, I send a personalized video to everybody. But what's different about our open house is our technology platform requires we 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 don't make them sign in, we sign them in. Like, okay, this
Yeah.
we do it for them because clients less apt to lie to you. Um, we take the information, then and automatically that open house ties into our CRM and our lead platform follow-up system. So we then send a video. Now because we have their phone number, we have their email, right? Um, and we've logged them into our system. Well, now they're going to get retargeting ads because we're already running ads to the neighborhood. Now it's for sure going to happen because we have a matching email address and a phone number. So that's huge to us too, right? I don't mind doing open houses just for that simple fact.
I got you. I
Um,
got you. So you guys, I mean, this is actually more interesting than the internet stuff for me because I think a lot of agents leave a lot of money on the table when they don't squeeze every last drop of that listing, right? And if you don't have listings, replace it with a pending. It's your pending as a buyer. You should do the same thing, in my opinion, right? You should do the same thing. I just sold this home. Like you literally represented the buyer, and you can do that. You can still farm the neighborhood. You can still try to do that. I think that's such a big piece. And I think a lot of teams don't do that. I think a lot of teams have this expectation that, the leads are going to come to them and they're going to work the leads. You guys are lead generating, right? You're doing lead
right.
generation, actual lead generation based off of the neighborhood. That property you guys listed on the neighborhood. I think that's a fabulous idea, Daryl. It's amazing.
Well, we also batch email the people in our database because fortunately for Follow Up Boss, we're able to filter out by the cities and zip codes our databases, and because we have such a large
Nice.
database, we're able to batch email them and let them know that an open house is going to be had that weekend. Here's the thing that I want to share with your group of people. is I get it. Agents have sphere of influence and referrals, and you hear so many agents saying that I don't need any of this. I'm working on SOI and referrals. But here's the thing, right? Unless you're in a market like California or some markets where it doesn't matter, the market's always going to be busy. Most markets have slowed down to some extent. And
Yeah.
I keep hearing over and over, Daryl, my sphere of influence, my referrals are drying up. I'm not getting as many. I'm starting to struggle. Now I need to get on your lead program and I need to do deals. Well, the problem is that one, their expectation is that they want to get on this lead program and they're going to get a deal. It's probably not going to happen right away, right? And because they didn't do a lot of work before when they were on the SOI and referrals, they're definitely not going to put in the work that it requires for this. But the reason why I think it's so important to be well-rounded and be able to work SOI and referrals and paid leads, the difference between SOI and referrals is plain and simple. You don't know when their hand is going to go up, but if you're lead generating and following up with leads that you're buying, those people are raising their hand and you don't have to wait for somebody to pop up. People are raising their hands. The more you build your database, right? Every day you should be whatever. If you're buying leads, great. You should be adding people when you go to the grocery store. You should add the mailman. You should add the person at the gas station. You should be adding 5 people to your database because people know, like, and trust you, want to work with somebody. It's a very simple concept, right? Oh, I don't want to bother anybody. I'm intruding this new world we live in. We'll have to save that conversation for another day. But I'm adding people, right? Like nonstop.
100%.
Like if I need to know your name, email, and phone number, right? I don't really care if you want to tell me your address or not. I'm going to find it anyways. As soon as I put it in the system, I'm going to get it from public record. I don't care.
Quick,
But
easy.
at the end of the day, the difference is that paid leads are raising their hands nonstop. Having the right conversation at the right place for the right type of source of lead is so important. And we'll just transition into how do we convert leads so
100%.
well.
That was my next one. I said, great. We've established, the different lead sources, and then people get it. I think there's differences in approach and the mindset changes once you understand the lead a little bit better. Great. Daryl, a new lead comes in. What happens with you guys? How do you start that conversion process? Go for it.
First and foremost, all these lead sources outside of Google, and even Google, right? Because anybody can advertise on there. Every lead source, you can guarantee 5 to 10 other agents are getting that same contact information, right? They're getting the same contact information. So I don't know if anybody's ever owned a turtle, but I did. And when you have the turtle and you poke at it. I'm not saying buy a turtle and poke at it, but if you have a turtle and you poke at it, its head goes in and it closes up. So what happens is these leads come in and everybody starts calling them or
Yeah, you
texting or
hammer 'em.
emailing, and the client's like, whoa, right? And the message, the majority of the time, is the same stupid nonsense, right? It's not intentional to help the client, right? It's not about the problem, right?
Yeah. Are you
So,
transactional? Are you transactional now? I want to
right.
work
Oh,
with
I don't want to deal with
transactional
you now, right?
people. Okay, no,
Right.
that's fine. So call me when you're ready. Let me know when
Right.
you're transactional. I'll be waiting patiently by the.
Right. Just
That's
keep
usually the
waiting.
approach. That's usually the
Right.
approach. Yeah.
So I'm going to drop this tidbit. This is factual data from our database. It takes 17 touches before the client even engages us. 17. That grew from 10 years ago to
Wow.
17
To
now.
70, and that's call, text, email. That's everything, right?
Yeah. So
Wow.
when we have a lead come in, of course we try to call them. But we have our platform where we're sending seller alerts, buyer alerts, texting, email, right? But that's great because I'm not the only one doing that, right? Everybody, the majority of those smart teams have that stuff set up. So what's happening is we're right out of the gate, we're sending a personalized video introduction, which that doesn't seem so complicated. But what we see is that one, if they were a buyer lead, we set up a search for them even if we didn't speak to them on the phone. No matter what, if they were looking for a home in X area and it had 3 bedrooms, they're getting a search $100,000 less, $100,000 more than that price, they're getting a search. They're also getting a seller alert because of the platform we use based on the zip code where they're buying. People say, why would you set up a seller? Because I want them to know what's happening in that marketing. I wanted them to educate them. I want to see if they come back to my page versus going to Zillow or Realtor.com. I want to see if they're coming back. If they're coming back, that means I'm providing value to them. Now, if I can't convert them and they don't have a family member or an agent they're already working with, that means my message to market is screwed up somewhere along the line. I'm having the wrong conversation at the wrong time, at the wrong place they're ready for, and with the wrong type of lead. So I know that if they keep coming back and I can't have a conversation, it's me, right? Because I'm having the wrong conversation. So getting them set up on not using the MLS, using a platform like YLOPO, where we have seller alerts and buyer alerts. I need to know how long that customer's been looking at their property, how many times they're coming back, what they're favoriting. So we call, we text, we email. When we get on the phone, as soon as we get them on the phone, that's the gold. We do not have conversations like, I seen you were looking at property. I'm calling to follow up with you. Those are not, we don't, those words never come out of our mouth.
Love it.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we seen that you were looking at 1234 Main Street. Listen, I know you're not ready to buy right now. And let me tell you, moving is probably the most stressful thing. Tell me a little bit about what's causing you to think about making this move to 1234 Main Street. And then I'm going to ask you why you like that area, because I want to know what's going on at home first. But you know what? We had a death. My husband's disabled. Wife's pregnant with triplets. People need to know that you went, and you can thank John Cheplack for this. That you went through people that you personally went through a situation like them. You went through it and you came out better than when you went into it before. When a consumer knows that you went through the same situation that they're going through and they can trust you, they'll work with you. So this goes to the point where we get somebody on the phone. I need motivation is I think so overused in this industry. A condition is something that's happening. A condition is like you're getting a divorce. You will the motivation is the timeline and what it's happening. The motivation is the timeline. So the condition is a divorce. The end result will be a divorce. The motivation is the timeline. Your wife is pregnant. That's a condition with triplets. The motivation to find a new home to fit the family, to fix the condition, to ultimately resolve it. So the motivation, how bad is that problem for them, right? But the condition is still the condition. The problem is not going to go away. Will the client let the problem manifest so big? So the biggest reason why I'm so successful and that people who listen to, who coach with me and work with me is that we are not following up with anybody. Every time they're on the phone, we're taking and solving one piece of the problem. And calling and saying, I'm following up with you is not solving a problem.
Nope. That's a
No,
you question. Like I'm following
that's a
up.
you.
So are you ready to give me what I want or not? It's like a bill collector. They follow up,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
So we're on that call, on every call, there's an appointment set for the next call or in-person meeting. There is no follow-up. I did this for you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. You said you needed this. I did this. In result, I need to call you this day so we can have this conversation. We had this conversation this day. We need to meet in person this day so I can resolve it. Look, I'm very good at solving problems, right? If the consumer doesn't want their problem solved, you cannot fix that level of motivation, again, the timeline to fix the condition. When you understand that, when you understand that, and you take away the mindset like you can fix everybody's problems, and you then decide, hey, I'm going to prospect in abundance so I can find the clients that actually I can fix their problems, and that their motivation to fix the condition is so strong that they're going to want to work with me in a week, a month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Now, let's say that you have a client who has two kids. They have twins, and they're in high school, and they're getting ready to graduate, and they're going to go away to college in the spring, and it's October, and they're going to go away in the spring. Well, the condition is the kids are going to leave the house. The house is too much for the family, and they want to downsize, and they want to relocate to a ranch. Well, the kids are going to leave. That's no doubt. Wouldn't I like to have a pipeline of consistent people falling into place because I was having a conversation with them every 2 or 3 months? And I wasn't calling the client and annoying them with some garbage conversation about, I'm following up with you, I'm following up with you. You know? It's so annoying. Like, why not have a conversation with Mr. and Mrs. Smith that are going to be, their kids are going to be moving out of town? Is, okay, what this process looks like moving forward, right? And having that conversation with them in person. I'm not going to call them, Daryl, till they're ready. I'm not going to go to their house. That's a waste of my time. I made more money and I made more commissions on people who saw value in me than I did the people who beat me up. And those people, I made so much money on the people who actually I've given value because they've seen the value. And I feel like the people who are looking for now business is wrong, but the now business, those people, their P&Ls are garbage. But again, when I'm on the phone, the conversation for conversion is an appointment. It does not mean I don't care if they're buying in 6 months. The next conversation is going to happen on this date. I'm going to set you up in the calendar. I'm going to send you a text and email before then. Any
Gotcha.
client
And
who,
and
go
Daryl,
ahead.
and that example, let me unpack that a little bit because maybe they're 6 months out, maybe they're more months out. You're saying you're not going to wait the 6 months to follow up with them. Is it like a monthly follow up? What's a good example in that frame? If they're saying, yeah, I'm 6 months out, I'm next spring, right? It's we're in the middle of September. I'm going to be ready in the springtime, Daryl. I think I'm good. You don't just accept that. You're going to say, great,
No,
then we have to talk next month because, I need to explain this to you. Is it
well,
a monthly thing?
well, no, because here's the thing, right? Just take this concept and think about it. If the client is going to solve the problem on their own, why do they need you? Right? If the problem
100%.
is going to solve the problem, so by you taking a step back and saying, I'm going to, if the client says they're going to sell, again, first you have to know the condition, right? What is going on and what's
Why are
happening.
they selling? Why are they selling?
Right. What is the condition? And if that condition is a fixed condition that it's this date when the kids graduate or what have you, great. But if the time period is that, if I knew, and I don't tie everything to money, but I'm going to tie it to money this time. If I knew that that commission check was 30 grand, why would I not secure my investment by continuously providing value, not following up, but actually providing value and getting to the process? Because it's not like May 1st, the home goes live. Like May 1st, they call me in the spring, we're going to sell in May. No, there's a bunch of things that need to happen before they even go to market, right?
Sure.
So setting that expectation up, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you may know how to sell your own home and you've done this before. Wouldn't you like it that at no cost to you, I'm actually walking you through the process, checking out your property, telling you what the landscaping should look like, X, Y, and Z before we go live. This way we get the most amount of money from your home. Who's going to tell you no, right? But if the
Gotcha.
conversation, if the conversations aren't intentional to help them, and you're using the word follow up, I'm going to send you your home value. They already know their
Yeah.
home value. Right? People who own homes are not dumb, right? Because they know what their home is worth, and because they're comparing their home against the neighbors, why their home is worth so much more, and how it's better, and you know. So becoming a problem solver. knowing
Got it.
that the client needs to know that you went through a problem, and they're not going to take your word. The only way they're going to probably start to believe your conversation is if you call them and give them solutions to their problems before they sign a contract. When I sign a contract, I swear to God, this is no lie. I walk in the house with nothing. I mean, I like how we are today, and I walk in the house with my laptop. That is it. I just came from a listing appointment. No paperwork, no nothing. The client knew everything before. So when I showed up their house, what questions do you have? What's your commission, Daryl? 4%. Is that the list side? Yes. What about the buyers? You know what? We'll handle that when we get a buyer's offer. We'll let the buyer's agent work out their deal with their client, and we'll let them negotiate the best price so they can get the best commission. Does that make sense to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? Yes. So you and I talked about, I sent you the comps. I think the home should be listed at this price based on days on the market. You told me you needed to be moved this quickly. We should put it at this home at this price. If you don't need to move that quickly, we can list at this price. What makes sense to you? Any other questions? Great. Here's the contract electronically. I turn the computer on. I'm like, sign it. And that's typically how my situations go because I've solved all their problems. Like I've walked them to the finish line. So there's nothing
Conversion
else.
started way before. Way before.
Right. It's like you meet this gorgeous woman, and I'm not trying to talk about like this, but you meet a gorgeous woman at the bar. You're not just saying, let's buy a house and plan on having babies next week, right? It's a whole courtship.
Yeah,
And I
100%.
hate to say it. I hate to say it. I think, well, it's not even that and when you work with a house situation, you're courting a husband, a wife, or you are a couple. You're courting both of them. You're not just courting one. And right, and just like me and you and everybody else, we all have different beliefs. So you can't court one person in the house and not court the other one. So you need to get in front of them so they can both like you. And being a problem solver, how can the husband say, even if the husband had a friend who was a realtor and I'm solving the problems, and the wife is like, Daryl told us to do this and this and this and this, and it's worked, and we've got these problems resolved. So how can the husband say we're going to use another realtor? The wife isn't buying into it. She's already bought it to me. I'm going to win. So my conversations are when I get on the phone, I'm not selling you anything today. I know you're not ready to move, right? What made you turn in your information like a crazy person online and get 50 million phone calls? Tell me about what's going on at home. My next phone call is going to be an appointment. That next appointment is going to be an in-person appointment. And I need you to get all decision makers at the
I
property
got
so
you.
we can talk. And that is the key. You will never
Gotcha.
hear me say on the phone.
And you're doing
But
that independent of whether they're 3 months out, 6 months out, 8 months out, 9 months out. You're saying it's more important to position yourself as that problem solver, kind of regardless of what the time frame is, because you know
every problem
that
has a different timeline, right? So you're
yeah,
saying how your question was, and I have a little bit of ADHD, but to answer your question is every problem has a different set of steps in it, right?
yeah,
But there's not like a problem that is so different. Problems are problems, and they're all basically the same in some format. They all
yeah,
have the same timeline in them. A divorce is 8 months long. A pregnancy is 10 months long. A death, probate. Things happen, right?
yeah.
So based on that, based on whatever they tell me, what the condition is or the problem, then that's what I base my follow up on.
Got it.
And those are my calls solve a problem each time.
I
My
got
I'm
it. I
not
got
on
it.
the phone to be on a process. So the timeline varies for each
It,
situation.
it, it depends on the situation, but regardless of the situation, you're gonna be pushing to meet in person to help them walk through the property and show them what they should invest in months ahead of time. You're not that because I know a lot of agents they don't want to meet with anyone until they're 90 days out. They don't even want
Right.
to almost even want to talk to them right until they're 90 days out. ISA hand it over to me when they're 90 days out. I don't want to talk to anybody that isn't 90 days out, right? So, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of risk there because they might run
Mhm.
into Daryl and Daryl already met with them in person 3 months ago, right? So guess what? Your chances of getting that meeting 90 days out all went to zero, right? Like that is a real because you're trying to build that relationship way ahead of time. Is that fair?
100% all the time. It's like,
Got it.
yeah, 100%. And the thing is, the client may not want to meet you first. Then you need to provide values in different ways, right? Um, you may need to drive by their house. At the end of the day, I look at it like this. I get to pick and choose who I work with. If I'm on the phone with somebody and I realize that this person's an abusive, narcissistic, whatever it may be, I get to decide if I follow up with them or not. Like
Yeah.
I decide if I get to solve their problem, right? So people say, Daryl, what's your average price point? I don't know. I just sold an $80,000 house yesterday at closing because the lady called me on Sunday after I got out of church and she was crying on the phone. Nobody will help me. Okay, tell me why you
Uh,
need to move. So I operate from the concept that if I don't like you, I'm not working with you. I personally do not care how much money is involved. I have people who call and complain to management that's set in place by us, right? They call and complain to the management was put in place, but I don't care. If I don't like you, right, or I don't feel like I could solve your problem, I'm not going to work with you. Now, if I like you and I can't solve your problem, but I know somebody who I can bring in, my ego is not big enough. I will go find that person and either refer or work alongside so I can get better knowledgeable so I can help them. But
I love it.
again, real estate conversion is not that hard. Every step is a
Got it.
problem solving.
I got it. So taking that problem solving approach, and you're starting off with a lot of empathy. Like you're putting yourself in their shoes because it's not fun to get those phone calls. Actually, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
great to hear the same pitch over and over again. I have a lot of empathy with the consumer that says, "Oh, you guys sound the same." Like I can't even tell who's better than the other person. I can't tell. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna go whoever charges less. What's your rebate? Because that's got to be the difference, right? If you guys sound the same, I'm just going to go with the lowest cost. Why wouldn't you? It's the rational thing to do because people tend to not take that approach. It's a very transactional approach. Daryl, I'm mindful of the time. I got two more questions I want to get to. One, so well, this could be another whole other call, but in brief, you touched on it a little bit. These NAR settlement changes, because you've got a very large database. I'm assuming the team is still very buyer heavy. You work with a lot of buyers. What, if anything, have you guys changed with these new changes they just came down, 6 weeks ago? What, if anything, have you guys changed? How did you prepare for that? What did you guys do to adjust and thrive in this environment where the rules have changed?
One, I'm a firm believer that people make mountains out of molehills. And I've always had
For
the
sure.
mindset. I've always I've always had the mindset that I'm not I'm not going to really worry about it. I'll deal with the consequences later. With that said, my partner is an attorney. He's probably on the other side of the wall, and he's an attorney, and he thank God for him, and he gives me good advice. But here's the thing: is Wide Lopo rolled out a fully editable, customizable buyer's presentation. And and you could go make your own thing on Canva and all that, right? I was
For
just
sure.
blessed that I did not have to spend the time building that out. And it was very universal and and you can make it specific to your clients. So that had rolled out, and thanks to G and Howard, who were very aggressive in that. Um, so it's all mindset, right? If you get on the phone and you're questioning if the client is going to sign the BBA or they even want to have uh, an experience, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because 9 times out of 10, would you would you go and buy an IRA or something without having somebody give you information before you started signing paperwork? No, you want a professional. So it's the presentation, it's the prelude, it's the buying the drink at the bar. Like when you're on a date, it's all that stuff that matters. So when we get the consumer who's like, in theory, we should not be having a conversation about signing a BBA before the day of going to look at homes. If we're having that conversation, we need to look at ourselves and like say, where did we go wrong? Why did we not do a
Got it.
proper education to those consumers? So we look at ourselves. Do we not make those mistakes? We absolutely make those mistakes, right? So my executive assistant is very good at conversion. She solves problems. She has conversations. and she'll get on a Google meeting and do the buyer's presentation, and then she'll send the document for the full 3% to the buyer to sign, and the buyer will sign it electronically. I firmly believe as agents, we cause more harm to ourselves. We try to overcomplicate the process. We try to
Yeah.
talk ourselves out of it. One, if the client was willing to get on the phone with you, meet you in person or get on a video call, they were willing to take your calls all the way up until that point. They were willing to tell you why they needed this, right? They were willing to get on the phone with a loan officer. Um, it's not a problem. We don't overthink it. I think
Got it.
with the changes, um, I think it was a lot of wasted energy
Oh yeah.
across all platforms. It was a
Freaking
lot.
out. Freaking out.
Yeah, it was just wasted energy. And when we went through it here too, right? With new forms, this, that, should we do this? So funny because I talked to the admin and the admin are like, yeah, that was so overrated. So we didn't think about it. We just looked at it and said, if a buyer won't sign this after we've done all this with them, one, maybe our presentation wasn't correct. If we did, and then we went back and did it again and they still wouldn't sign the BBA, they're not the right client for us.
I think
Because
so.
guess what? If they want to sign the BBA, they're not going to do what it takes to get an offer accepted. It's going to be a problem in negotiations. I don't want that type of client. So we just made sure that I had always trained my team when I had 50 agents. And when I came here and I built the lead program, I've always been keen on the idea of a correct buyer's presentation. The only thing was before is it was happening at the last home the very first time we met them. Now
Yeah.
it's happening online. So before we meet them or in person at a coffee shop. But now
I
the
got you.
client knows what to expect. So when we get to the house and we ask them to get pre-approved after the first set of showings because they know, like, and trust us, they're set up to do it. So I don't think much has changed other
Got it.
than we just didn't make it a mental thing like, oh, this was going to make us broke or poor. Now the agents that are Zillow Flex agents that are just glorified door openers and the team leader saying, go, 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 go. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
get a
that might
coach.
be a problem.
That might
100%.
be a
So
real.
I agree with you, man. I think if with your approach, where you're doing this a lot of discovery, where you're trying to build that relationship, find those conditions, show them how to resolve them, how you're going to help them resolve them.
Mhm.
The buyer, agreement should just be a formality. Daryl, I think really, really convinced on that value approach. The buyer agency agreement should just be a formality if you follow the steps. But to wrap this thing up, tell us about the divorce leads system. Why'd that catch your eye? You have all these different lead sources. That's one you wanted to kind of go deep on. What is that program? How does that work? Tell us.
I bought the domain and the phone numbers long ago. Just so you know, everybody is guilty of being what do you call that?
Procrastinator.
Procrastinator. Yeah,
Yeah.
So I've owned this for like almost 10 years. I didn't do anything with it. I'll spare the backstory with it. But essentially, what divorce real estate is, or 1-800 breakup is a lead generation source, much like homelight.com or Zillow. And the goal is to generate listing leads before the lead gets to an attorney. It's also meant to generate attorney leads. And we just recently partnered with betterhelp.com so consumers can get with therapists. So we're providing context for therapists, attorneys, and real estate agents. We're more of an educational platform for the consumer. And then in return, when we get a consumer who wants to work with an expert in the area, we're trying to be the national expert and go national and, corner 15-20% of the market and not depend on attorneys. That's the big thing. Everybody's like, go make friendship with an attorney. Well, the consumer, just like they are just like they are when they're looking for a home, they're on Google. So we're trying to educate them throughout the process and align them with an agent. And in return, we collect a referral fee for the listing side for the agents, and we align them with attorney, and we align them with a therapist. Why do I do this? Well, short story short is my past. As a child, I went through all this. My parents went through a divorce. We lost our home. I went through some personal things, like my family. It was very abusive, mentally and physically, and so I had to go to therapy. So I went through this when I was 10 years old. So for context, 47 years old now. So I'm doing this to better the world, and then to ultimately create a solid nonprofit to help people start a road to new beginnings.
I love it. I love it, man. That's deep. That I was thinking it was, a prospecting, opportunity. Like this is coming from a lot deeper. So that's awesome. I think, all the success to that project. Daryl, if people want to continue the conversation, learn more about your systems, your process, maybe coach with you or learn more about divorceleads.com, what is the best way to reach out to you?
Daryl Wizinsky, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm on every platform by name. And you can Google me if you need. You can Google me, Daryl at Brookstone, Daryl at Divorce Real Estate. Any of that. It's pretty easy to find me. I'm on the internet. I'm not hard to find. I populate pretty easy. And then if you reach out to me, I'll probably send you a calendar link, schedule a one-on-one 30 minutes with me, and we'll have a conversation and what we think would be best for our best relationship moving forward. And that pretty much is how it would go.
Awesome. I love that. I actually went through that process. So he's 100% legit. Like not knowing what the hell I was even talking about, Daryl sent me a link to meet with him. And I was very impressed by that. The generosity with your time, just being very genuine. Just try. You wanted to solve my problem. That was it. So I went through that whole problem solving process with you. So when he says that, he's actually going to do that. Just so you guys know. So I'm very impressed by that. Daryl, this has been awesome. Appreciate you being so gracious with your time. A lot of value in this chat. I think the audience is going to love it. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right.